So as you're looking at it, you're trying to figure out what is it that they're really after. And sometimes you're not going to know. All I want you to do is to start critically thinking. And I know that's law school, that's a long time ago. We kind of get ourselves on autopilot because a lot of us do the same thing over and over. I know when I was doing water law, the issues are always the same. The players are always the same. Everything kind of ends up being the same. And so you get into a routine. Unfortunately now, there is no routine when you get involved in the political process. So, you want to be thinking about, okay, what's the issue? Is it really the child welfare rules, or is it someone looking, in this case agency personnel, to use us to further their dispute with the legislature? Or is it another elected official? I understand that in your state, you may be seeing more of this soon. Again, you have my sympathy because we've had this problem now for the last 3 or 4 years. The other one is going to be the media. The media decides sometimes who's the better story, who moves more newspapers, who moves more TV time, who's more fun to poke and attack. And so what you'll find is, and this is especially true for not only the lawyers, but for the staff and administrative personnel, your phone will ring and it will be a strange person because they got your number somehow and they don't want to have to go through Al or your public information officer, but they saw your name on a pleading, and on your pleading your name has your phone number. And so they call and they're acting like they're someone from the court or the opposing counsel and they want to talk about the case. Well, it turns out it's a reporter. And I don't know what your media policy is. Ours is all media inquiries go through our PIO. And we are religious about that, including me. All inquiries go to the PIO. That phrase can become not only your best friend, but your life raft should this tsunami hit your office on a particular issue. Because as long as you say, I'm sorry, all inquiries go to the PIO, I'll transfer you, or here's her or his number, then you're covered. You've done what you're supposed to do. You don't have to worry about it anymore. And the other one that's my favorite is who you really want to be careful of are constituents, citizens. If I had a penny for every constituent who called up and said, if you don't solve my problem, whether it was a custody dispute or they didn't like that the county attorney didn't file a particular charge, they were going to run to the media about Attorney General refuses to do his job. Now, that can even happen to you when you're not a candidate. We just convicted one of our state senators of taking $63,000 out of her campaign account and spending it at casinos across the country. But interestingly, in Nebraska, it's not a criminal offense to do that. It's only a criminal offense if you fail to report it, which she failed to report it. Those were cash expenditures greater than $50, which you're required to report. But the upcry, she's running against a long-term incumbent who was forced out by term limits and who is coming back. And he's accusing us of cutting her a deal so that she can stay in the campaign because we charged her with 2 misdemeanors instead of 5 felonies. The problem was we knew that the fine she would get for the felonies would be less than what we would have to spend to bring in all of the casinos from around the country, to lay the foundation for the records, to bring in their bank folks, to hire a forensic accountant. We were going to spend probably twice as much as she was going to be fined under the false reporting statute. So, again, constituents, they want you, if you don't do what I want, or if you don't help us, we're going to run to the media and we're going to tell them you're doing such a horrible job. Don't worry about it. That's Al's job. All your job is, if that little red flag goes up, your job is to let Al know, or whoever your direct supervisor is, and they'll let Al know. because that's the only way you can deal with these things. And the way you deal with it is you're very nice, you're very polite, but I'll forward your complaint on to so-and-so, or all media inquiries go to the public information officer, and here's that person's phone number. So why do you care, and why do they care? This is another one of my favorite slides, and guess what? You're not the shark. Again, most of the time, the motivation is, a lot of people have, for the media, their motivation is they got to move product. Controversy sells newspapers. There are media consultants who get paid obscene amount of money that tell them to sensationalize, to move stories. That's why you see it in every part of the newspaper now, including the sports section. In Nebraska, football is kind of a religion for us. On Saturdays, we worship twice a week. On Saturdays, we all wear red and worship in a very big house that holds 85,000 congregants. And then on Sunday, of course, we all go to our respective churches, synagogues, or however you choose to worship. But even there, the media now wants every day the coach is on the hot seat. Every day, this decision could lead to the coach being fired. Well, it's the same thing for you folks. The media is trying to drive stories. And I'll give you my favorite example. Again, HHS, one of our favorite and repeat customers, they never stop giving us business. One of their managers had inappropriately harassed a female employee. And it was a fairly clear case, but it was the lawyer for the person was being unreasonable in terms of settlement, so we made a reasonable settlement offer. We couldn't settle, so we had to go to trial. The judge made a few legal errors, so we took it up on appeal. I have a very good appellate staff. They did a wonderful job, but it was pretty much a case we were likely going to lose. So was the headline, HHS loses harassment suit? Oh, no. The headline was, Attorney General Bruning fails harassment test. Exactly. What will happen has no bearing to reality, but it does bear to their motivation. So whether they're trying to get you to do something for them, they're trying to leverage you to solve their problem or to solve some dispute they have, or whether they're using you to move media, to sell advertising, understand that you're never the shark and you're always in the kayak. And your only hope, your only shark repellent is to tell Al.
I'm getting a lot of work this morning.
So this slide is one of my favorites. Anybody know what this is? This is the Beatles cover to the album Help. And frankly, what I want to tell you is your best defense is to always ask for help. And I talked to Al about this because basically I had to sit down with my staff and say, I'm going to apologize. I had a meeting much like this one, only it was me. And it was basically me apologizing to the staff in advance. You're going to go through some things that just aren't going to be very pleasant. And I apologize in advance. Understand that you have our full faith and trust, and that we will back you 100%, as long as you tell me what's going on. As long as I know what cases are coming up for motions and hearings, what rules and regs, I'm going to need to see them all, because I'm a guy who likes to delegate. We're a fairly small office, and so I delegate a lot of stuff. My boss was president of the National Association, and at the same time, chair of the Tobacco Committee. If there's any of the tobacco people in here, they know what a nightmare that is, which means really I was chair of the Tobacco Committee. And so I like to delegate. Well, you can't delegate when every single thing you do, no matter how routine it is, ends up being a potential front page story. So what you need to do is you're going to have a level of trust with the people outside the office that you work with. I would suggest to you, you use an old line that I think it was Reagan that used this, trust but verify. So if there's people you trust, just kind of make sure that they're on the level. Because sometimes they may not be trying to screw you, but their boss may be trying to screw you, or the governors, office may be directing agency personnel to do something that doesn't quite sound right. That happens to us all the time. Our governor is the master of getting us to tell people the bad news and then blaming us. And of course, we're ever so willing to jump off into the deep end. So what I'm suggesting is, if you can't figure it out, but it just doesn't, trust your instincts. If it doesn't sound right, and if you're thinking critically, just run it up the food chain. It can't hurt anything. Al knows what's coming. He knows that you're getting into what will become a hyper-political situation. Just make sure the flow of information can never hurt you. And as I told my folks, you can never tell me too much. If I don't need to know it, I'll let it go. But if you've told me and it blows up, there's one person the AG is going to yell at, and that's me.